MotoGP, the PT Grand Prix of Thailand. 3 rounds now remain, and there's 20 points in it, but it's a role reversal from 2023. This time, the man leading the way is the Prima Pramac racing man Jorge Martin, with world champion Pecco Bagnaia surely up against his biggest task yet to try and make it a hat-trick of MotoGP world champions. The Italian needs to turn it around and needs to turn it around fast, starting this weekend, a place where Martin did the double last year. So much intrigue, so much fascinating talking points for us to get stuck into from a brilliant Australian Grand Prix just 5 days ago. Jack Appleyard and Simon Crafar, as ever, to bring you Grand Prix gear up before we have two press conferences coming your way. The first one featuring the two men fighting to be world champion, plus our victor last time out, Marc Marquez, and then we'll hear from Brad Binder, Luca Marini and Fabio De Gianantonio. But this Chang International Circuit so often delivers. We so often see such close finishes, last lap battles, none more thrilling than what we were witnessing in 2023. Simon, you've had the chance to try it this morning, or this afternoon, should I say, in the Thai heat. How was it? Good to see that you managed to at least get through it.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I expected. It wasn't as brutally hot as we've seen in Malaysia, for example, or I imagine Thailand when we come back, because it'll be in the dry season, and they're talking 40s, where it doesn't feels like early 30s hitting here at the moment. And pit lane's got some shade. Thank you, Chang International Circuit, which keeps you and I out of the sun, makes a big difference. Okay, they've made some improvements on the track, which was nice to see. There'll be less track limits violations because the important exits are changed to the Misano curb and no green paint. Misano curb's 1.2 metres wide off camber, and gets bumpier the further you go out. So it encourages riders to stay in, and there's no green paint if you go out. So it just gets worse for them, less grip. And so less track violations, which is spot on what we want. Grip is good. You always feel with the front tyre, on the Thursday when I go out, the ones that aren't grippy, it doesn't turn, it doesn't want to stop. It does all that. So I think grip level's pretty good. What else? There's a few bumps. They've fixed a few, but there's a few. It's well acceptable. It's nothing nasty. The layout is great. It really is good.
Yeah.
It's like, I would say the closest comparison would be Red Bull Ring, which doesn't sound that exciting. It's drag. The first part of it, or out of the last turn, out of the second turn, out of the third turn, is a drag strip. It's super hard braking, and as hard as Red Bull Ring, super hard braking, and then getting it turned and getting the exit, another drag strip. So your bike needs to stop well and accelerate well, like really hard braking. And this is the first turn, and if you get it wrong, there's a Misano curb there, but the green is no longer there, but that's going into the last turn. I don't know where we are. We're changing around. But in general, the Misano curbs are going to stop those track violations. Like I said, the surface is grippy, a couple of bumps here and there, but nothing terrible. And the layout is fantastic. It starts off with the stop-start drag strip type like Red Bull Ring, and then it goes into this flowing sector that is actually really good. Last turn, amazing braking here, and Jorge did a top job to block him. But Pecco, amazing braking there. So that infield flowing bit is better than the Red Bull Ring. It's got a super fast first left-hander. Basically, the first left-hander, super quick. You're down one or two and just throw it in. It's really quick. Then it's a bit more technical turns that just keep going and long leaning, and then getting back. Then it gets back into the stop-start, which I've got to say I really like.
It's got a bit of everything.
Yeah.
And that's why we've seen such great racing down the years. As we said, none more so than the absolute classic in 2023 when the top three were split by just over a tenth of a second. It was a brilliant fight between Jorge Martin, Pecco Bagnaia, who we expect to be up there again this year, and Brad Binder. KTM, of course, having a little bit more difficulties in 2024. I think it'll be a surprise if he's in the podium fight this time around. But let's touch on the World Championship fight then. 6 races remain, 3 rounds, 20 points in it. Jorge Martin went to Australia, 10 points clear in the World Championship. came away from it 20 points clear at such a vital juncture in the season. How much of a mental blow to Bagnaia did Martin deliver last time out?
I think he'll be trying to, justify it, and it is justifiable because Phillip Island is such a good track for Jorge.
Yeah.
And we knew that going in. He was amazing 12 months ago, and he was amazing this time. So you can justify it. Pecco limited the damage, but it's still going to hurt. It will. He will lose some sleep over it. And then you come here, Jorge was great as well, but Pecco was right there,
Yes.
competitiveness. So it's not going to be as easy. The best way to gauge it is to look at the Red Bull Ring for me. It's the same sort of qualities you want this track as Red Bull Ring, and that was Jorge, Pecco, and Mark. And Enea keeping the pressure on a bit. We keep saying that, every weekend. I would have thought that the GP24s would have the advantage, but Mark proved at the Red Bull Ring on Sunday that he could make that bike, keep the pressure on, and he was as good as anyone on the Sunday at Red Bull Ring. So I think even though the GP23 is not as competitive, it has a little bit less power, has a couple other things that maybe not quite as good, has better rear grip, the riders say, but weaker in other areas. The big thing is, overall, it's a step behind, but at this type of layout, Mark has already proved he can make up for it.
20 points at the moment for those of you at home. For me, I'd like to get your opinion, Simon. 17 points is going to be that key figure that everyone is looking at by the end of this weekend. If Jorge Martin is 17 points or more clear of Pecco Bagnaia, that means he can finish second to him in the remaining 4 races and still be world champion, which mentally, going into the penultimate 2 rounds, will be a huge advantage for Martin. Of course, there's a lot that can happen, but knowing that you don't have to go out there and beat your main rival, you can just sit and watch him and he can do nothing about it, will surely give him a huge advantage. And it seems a silly thing to say as well, that this is the most important round of the year, because it's the next round of the year, always the next one is the most important. However, with the championship as it is, it feels like a very vital moment where Bagnaia cannot allow that gap to get over 20 points by the time we leave here on Sunday night. And if it does go over, Martin suddenly becomes the red-hot favourite to win the World Championship. If Pecco can bring it in ever so slightly, get it beneath that 17-point advantage, you feel it's well and truly game on. It's sort of in the balance, you feel, at this very moment.
All I can state is the obvious, really, and that is, you're right, that must be a great feeling knowing you can go into all of the next races and sprints and finish second. But doing that also can make your concentration, your focus worse, and then the mistakes are easier to make. It sounds silly, but sometimes when the pressure's on, your mind is clearer, you make less mistakes. I know it from, for example, if you go, right, it's safe now, I can roll off a little, then that's when the mistakes happen, And speaking of mistakes, 20 points right now, we spoke earlier, and to me, all that is, for example, Mark winning, Pecco second, and Jorge's fallen off. And how often have we seen that this year already? So they're right on the edge, and it'd be so easy to happen. To be honest, I expect it to, because they've never gone 3 races without one of them, meaning 3 weekends without one of them having a disaster. So, well, never. You know what I'm saying? It's not normal.
It's been the story of the championship so far this year.
So I don't think it's anywhere close to being done. Yeah, it's a nice feeling for Jorge, but and a bit of pressure on Pecco, but maybe that'll mean he's the one that won't make the mistake.
Certainly feels from a Bagnaia perspective like this is a weekend where you can't allow yourself to make a mistake. You can't allow this World Championship to get away from you.
Well, he cannot afford the fall. Jorge can, so that's what it comes down to.
Interesting, I saw some articles midweek where it's been spoken about at length. Ducati's data sharing, how everyone can see everybody's data, allow everyone to make those steps overnight and grow. more competitive as the weekend goes on. Of course, last weekend, a prime example, they boxed out the top 6. The first time that's happened, I think, since 1997. It was another incredible weekend of domination for Ducati. To counter that, when these two have been so close, there's such fine margins between them, can there be any gamesmanship played by either Bagnaia or Martin to keep their cards close to their chest and not fully reveal exactly what they have to try and make sure that the other doesn't improve and get to their level? Is that possible in modern day MotoGP?
It's possible. I think the only way that you can do that, meaning not show all your cards, is if you're so much faster. It's that you can keep a little bit in reserve, and maybe we saw that in the sprint from Jorge, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Because Jorge
Pecco said just quickly on Saturday night he was playing with us, so that's what I think led to people potentially thinking that he didn't want to reveal all that he had ahead of the Grand Prix on Sunday.
And that fits because Jorge wasn't pushed, because Pecco was not on it in the sprint, something not right, bike setup, and Mark had the mistake, in the start, which put him so far back that, you know what I'm saying, in turn one, it put him so far back that he didn't put pressure on Jorge. And all I'm saying is Jorge was able to manage the race and not show all his cards, if that's how you want to put it. Yes. That is always the case, and it's a lovely position to be in if you're fast enough to be able to manage the race. But I would say this weekend it's going to be very difficult to do that, because I think all of them will be on it. Like Jorge has an advantage at Phillip Island, where here I really think there's at least 3 of them that will be as fast as Jorge, meaning 2 as fast as Jorge, maybe 3.
Last weekend, Jorge Martin said it was still 50-50. I think that's potentially changed now. Marc Marquez, ahead of the Australian Grand Prix, described it as 55-45 in favour of Jorge, has now revised that to 60-40 in favour of Jorge. 3 rounds to go, Si. Before we touch on Marc's performance last weekend, at this very moment, how do you see it? Who do you think?
I think the best way to put it is how I finished before, is Jorge can afford a fall and still be in the championship fight. Pecco can't. That's a nice position to be in.
Let's talk Marc Marquez then, who is going to be joining us in this first press conference, because what a ride that was 1 week ago at the Australian Grand Prix. The big error that I'm sure you are well aware of by now, when he took the tear off, it slipped under his rear wheel. I'm sure you've seen the video footage that has gone viral on social media. Dropped him back to 13th. Not that it slowed him down in any way. Recency bias will always take over, but was that one of Marc Marquez's best MotoGP wins, coming back from that? Oof. Up against the competition that he had.
I mean, he's had so many good ones,
Yeah,
so
there's a lot to pick from.
That's too hard to say, but it just shows how strong he was last Sunday, because it was absolutely brilliant to be able to lose that much time. It made it good for us, good for the show. I thanked him in part for the entertainment by throwing it, because it would have been, Mark would have been able to manage the race and then go at the end. And as it was a great fight back through and entertained us. So, I mean, unreal. Phillip Island is the sort of track where experience and rider skills you can make up, because there isn't the slow corners leading onto long straights. Here there is. And still, Mark, at the last time we went at a track like this, still Mark was competitive. So for me, it's going to be the 2 championship contenders and Mark for sure having a good scrap on it. I think it's going to be really close. It's not going to be a cakewalk. And I would be surprised if Anea wasn't close to that fight. I just struggle to see. I mean, Maverick is very good at the stop-start tracks. He was very good at the Red Bull Ring as well.
Yeah.
just Maverick, his first lap. He keeps losing too much for me right now to say he's going to be in that fight as well.
Problem.
But his lap times are right there at this type of track. So let's see what he can do as well.
There's no getting away from the fact that right now, Marc Marquez, the form man in MotoGP, he's won 3 of the last 6 Grand Prix. Yes, conditions have been in his favour on some cases. He's taken full advantage of different track conditions, different track layouts as well. But 3 of the last 6, the results speak for themselves at the moment. He's going to play a huge part in this World Championship.
Yes, and he hasn't got, I mean, we've said it before, but he hasn't got as much to lose, so he can really show everything without worrying about that one fall that I'm talking about, you know. And that is a nice, you know, to go out there and go, right, I'm just going to do everything I can. I don't have to wait. Basically worry about the big picture. I just have to worry about this race. And, yeah, that must be good. And we're seeing Marc at his best again. It is really good to see.
He's definitely putting a marker down ahead of a big 2025 campaign. He's certainly letting everybody know that he's one to be worried about next year.
One small thing, it's not a small thing, it's a big thing, but one quick thing to mention is front tyre pressure. This is going to be another one of those ones that, because the braking's so hard here and track temperature's so high, that you have to get the front tyre pressure right. We're going to see people struggle with it or go under, you know, trying to manage it, because big brakes, they'll have to run, massive heat comes off them, we'll have to have all the guards in that, and if you're following, you're going to be in trouble.
It's certainly something to keep an eye on. Fingers crossed we don't see any penalties. A man that we did think was going to get a penalty a couple of rounds ago, but was able to hold on to second place at the Indonesian Grand Prix. We thought that he's going to kick on from there. Pole position in Japan, the 2 crashes, and then, God, what a disastrous weekend it was for Pedro Acosta as Pecco Bagnaia meets some of our younger fans nice and early before our press conference gets underway. The good news is, Si, that Pedro will be reviewed after the opening session tomorrow, but has fully planned to race this weekend despite that nasty injury. It's something that you yourself have had to overcome in the past. It's not going to be easy for Pedro.
Well, anyone that's had ligament stretch, whether it's knee, what else they had, shoulder,
elbow.
Yeah, it would be, but I haven't had that one, so I can't relate. But ligaments in general, they take a good 3 weeks minimum to stop having this. It literally feels like a knife jamming when you use them, really painful. And all I'm saying is, I find it difficult to believe that Pedro, I'm not sure what I'm missing here.
No, I'm just chuckling at a slightly different looking Marc Marquez joining the press conference at the moment.
So I find it difficult to believe that Pedro will be fully fit and be able to ride this one. It's like I said, 3 weeks before it stops being horrible, painful. And shoulder, it's not like a lower body where you use less on a motorcycle. Upper body you use everywhere in the fast change of direction. If he can ride, I'll be surprised, you know, and hats off, because he's kind of like dislocated his shoulder enough to stretch the ligaments and it's gone back in. They'll be painful.
Yeah, he will. He did say if it was any other circuit than Phillip Island, he would have been very tempted to race on Sunday, but just the physical nature, the wind, everything that comes into it at Phillip Island led him to take the decision with the team to not race on Sunday and rest up for here.
It's true, because Phillip Island, after 4 flying laps, I was panting, and here, not at all. It's not physical. Okay, it always is on the GP bikes, but riding a stock bike around here, it's a really good point that it is. I wasn't puffing at all. It's a lot of straight line braking and not the same fast change of direction that you have at Phillip Island. So maybe Pedro will be right. I've got my fingers crossed.
Yeah, we all do, because it just looked like everything was going in one direction for Pedro Acosta, and after a dip in form mid-season, that first win wasn't too far away. But how quickly things can change in MotoGP. On the other side of the Austrian garage, we mentioned him right at the start, being in the heart of that podium fight 12 months ago. In fact, he's coming up in the second press conference, so we'll touch on South Africa's Brad Binder then and what his chances are ahead of the 2024 Thai Grand Prix. But as you can see, the top 3 men in the World Championship, the 3 men that enjoyed the podium celebrations in Australia just a few days ago, are here to talk about round 18. Jorge Martin, Pecco Bagnaia, Marc Marquez, all ready to go once again with Matt Burt.